The next thing, she takes the baby, does the cord work. The woman sits up, glass of orange juice, only one vitamin K shot, and orange juice. Woman gets off the table just like a routine examination, puts on her robe, gets out there, sits in the lounge and talks to somebody else and decides she thinks she's going to go home that afternoon. She wants to watch, it's her week to watch the telly. See, they buy televisions by 20 or 30 people together, and then they take turns using the television. And if it's her television time, she wants to come and watch it. Okay, but you see, and then I asked later on, I said, why'd you do vitamin K? You've done such a good job on the programming. And you know, the doctor said, well, he said, we know we can do this, but he said, usually the women will get up and walk 2-3 miles home, and he says sometimes the blood doesn't coagulate properly, so vitamin K, and we try to keep them here for at least an hour before we release them. At least an hour. Just like, so what else is new, you know? That was their attitude. Okay, so in any of the chalets out there, or the underlining areas, this is not them. But in the major cities, Moscow and Leningrad, these are what we call suggestology clinics. Another thing, you don't ever have to have pain again. You know why? Because you know what pain is? Pain is nothing but energy. Pulsations of energy. Now, you are the one that has a choice. What do you want to do? You got a choice. You want to hurt. The minute you hurt, the minute you exaggerate, the pulsations are going to come, and they're going to be very, very, very intense. Or do you want to heal? You can cut a finger, you can, with a hammer, and you know how that pulsation, you feel the pulsations. Now you've got that choice. Do you want to hurt or heal? If you hurt, you then have concentrated on this. The blood is coming down, surging, and then it can, as I would say, it will swell because of all the rushing of blood. See, the body wants to heal itself. It always has. It always will, provided you don't interfere. But you interfere. So now there's a surge of hurting. Did you know, by watching this procedure, all you do is say, heal, heal, heal. Now, there are still pulsations, but they've changed. They are warm, throbbing, like just waves slashing. The intensity of the pulsation has dissipated, and there's warm waves of healing. When you do this, 90% of the time it once took for you to have a healing, it's 90% stepped up. And you can just sort of blow it off. Okay? So you're the one that's in control. Do you want to hurt? Then you have at it. Or do you want to heal? You've got a choice, hurt or heal. But until you have experienced this, until you have actually says, I proved it to myself, you may go home and say, that sounds interesting, but I'll put that on the back burner. Don't you dare do this, because that's what I did. I was brought up to know that if I fell down, then I might give cancer. Or if a bruise looks serious. Everything, we were brought up in this fear of if she had an appendectomy, the neighbor boy had an appendectomy. It was just sort of one thing right after, and right now I know it was programming because they didn't have that much to talk about, except their children had surgery, and his was worse because his almost ruptured, you see? Well, hers ruptured, and so she's got a little more to talk about, you see? So, one up on you, that's right. And listen, it was hell trying to overcome some of this bad program. And fortunately, some of that is obsolete. Unfortunately, some of it is not. And so you really and truly get all of this stuff in, and you are sucked in on it. And if you need it, have at it. One of the most profound, and I'm not saying I'm profound because all of you can do this, all of you are healers. My son was in college, and he called one day and said, one of the acquaintances, his wife, had a hysterectomy, and said she is bleeding. She can't, the husband is very, very, very concerned about it. Incidentally, I low-key these things. My sons will say, don't talk about what you're doing, etc. I'm in a different area here. I'm very many faceted. But anyway, he said he needed my help, or she needed my help. He said, the doctor is a little put out with her. The nurses can't handle what she's doing. She can't go to the bathroom. She's all hooked up, and she's crying, and when she cries, she's opening her stitches, and they don't know what to do with her. She just came out of recovery. Go over and see what you can do, Mother. So I get over there, and here she is. I mean, she's just laying there, and she'd met me two different times before. But was she sitting there in her private room, or her mother and father? The mother, this poor Barbara, she's in such pain. Why can't they do something for her? Like this. I mean, as long as you've got that, let's play it to the hilt, kid. And I came in there and I said, okay. I said, all right, out, the two of you. The vibrations were so intense, this kid wasn't going to get well. She'd been in there weeks. The next thing I said, okay, let's snap out of it. I said, give me your hand, and I want you to give me your pain. And she looked at me. I said, yeah. I said, I can dissipate this pain. You can't. You have discomfort, but just give it to me. I'll get rid of it. Well, what's going on here? Who are you? And so forth. I said, I do this all the time. I am authority. So what you do then, you take hold of both hands of this person and tell them to draw out their pain. Okay? They are drawing out their pain. Every few minutes, no matter what you want to do, you set this up. It doesn't care. If you want to impress them, I don't care. All I do is go like this, and it's gone, gone, gone. Just like if you have sinus problems, got a technique for you. Send them to Arizona, and you've got rid of them. Put them out there in the desert so no one else has them. Many people have gotten rid of sinus. Just send them to Arizona. You don't have to go. Okay? Release them. Who needs them? You see? Okay, now she's given me her pain. And it's working. I said, what are you feeling? And I said, you still got those pulsations of energy. Because I know, I'm not going to give her a con job. I'm not going to tell her she doesn't hurt. But she sure is. See, what the body's wanting to do is heal, provided you don't interfere. So this energy's coming and it's healing like crazy. But if you're hurting, what you're doing, you're restricting. And so I said, you got those pulsations? Yes. I said, marvelous. That's what I want to hear. I said, don't they feel like waves of water slashing? Honey, that's healing. Come on, let's heal. Let's get this healing going. Now, have you got all of this hurting from, yes. Now you feeling? Now, okay, let's heal. Come on. And in 15 minutes, she was just like this. And then, well, to urinate also, because if they used a catheter, it can be irritating us. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's release it. It's okay. And after 15 minutes, she was just laying like this, like a little baby. And I said, now pulsations. Now remember, as in bearing down, I can relate to this. There are cycles where you stop. There's nothing. And what I say, you recharge batteries. You recharge. Then comes another surge. And I says, be grateful for surges. I said, because the more you get them, the faster your healing is. The next afternoon she was walking around. This happened, this has been about 12 years ago. Hopefully some of them have this information now, hopefully. When I got into these healing areas in all facets, I used to go around and I want to save the world, damn it. I mean, why don't you people know this? My God. What's taking these people so long? And then all of a sudden, I realized, no, so I've low-key it and I just go home and do my thing and procrastinating on my writing. Because there is so much that you can do to help yourself. When you know these things, share these things. And I get into color. I am a fantastic authority on body and organ language. Since I've been here a week, I usually, because I don't want to get that heavy. Yesterday I was in a session where everybody was crying. Last night everybody was laughing. When he first got in with the laughing, I got my laugh and went home. I didn't want the rest of it. You see? I'm going to choose what I want to do, you see. Okay, so what do I do with these lovely people I walk around and see? After I get to read them pretty well with buttons. Number 2, I can patronize them, accommodate them, or I can accommodate myself. You're not pushing minds around. I want you to know. Because they all have that ability. They can accept or they can reject. Okay? And you can tell them this, accept it or reject it. Okay, then I watch people. I want to know where they're coming from, what's taking them so long, or where they're at. So the first thing I'll do is watch rings. Okay. First, what the man have on last night? What was his name? Slips from. Where did he have his ring? Anybody you know? What does that mean? Parent fixation or creature comforts? I would say parent fixation in his case. Okay. Now, doesn't matter which finger. Creature comforts. Who else wears that ring or used to wear it? He doesn't anymore. Sammy Davis Jr. When Johnny Carson first got on the show. This means I have got it and I'm going to flaunt it. I have money, I have cars, I have yachts, I have trips, I have 2-3 houses, and I want a ring and I'm flaunting it. Or I would like it. I would like it. And then they put a ring. Now, if they say, I would like it, do you know after 6 months, this becomes part of their personality, and it's like subliminal programming, and they will be attracted to methods to get creature comforts, or what I call accumulation of material things. This is how we talk. This is what I call the silent language that you all tell me about yourself. This next one here is the phallic symbol or the marital status. A ring on this finger means marriage or, the only thing it does, let's see, there are 2 types of people, the Seventh-day Adventists, and there's another one in Holland where they do not wear rings, so this does not apply only to those 2 cultures. It applies to the rest of them because this is what I call race consciousness. We have always worn rings on our fingers from Egypt on way on back, even in Russia-Prussia times, into Mongolia. I can go way on back. But rings were always sort of a status. So we're pulling from that, our ancestors' creature comfort. Pulling what I call race consciousness. So this was then put on as for marital status. Now, any of you have detergent problems or had in the past? Any of you take off your ring, the women, at night and lay it on the nightstand? Because if you do, this means I am married, but the part of the marriage I do not like is the sexual part, and you will put this down. You will also, and I'm not going to say jump into conclusions, because what I'm going to say to you is, before I do analysis with a person or an observation, there must always be 3 things that I will recognize before I will say, do you realize that you have already wiped your husband out mentally? Okay? If they come, say, for counseling, and they'll sit down, and this is the first time they've known me, so it takes a little while for rapport. And usually it won't take long, because I know what their needs are. You make them comfortable. The second thing, I will look at their fingers. And if there's no ring on the finger, and I said, just need a little information here, how long have you been married? I've been married 13 years. This is a recent case history. Marvelous. Does the ring, I notice you don't have a ring on your finger. Yeah, I forgot it. And she says, I don't wear it much anymore. And I said, well, when is the time it was uncomfortable, or was it tight, or when did you not stop? 2 years ago. Then you better believe 2 years ago there was a traumatic situation with that woman. From that point on, she does not recognize the marriage. I've had clients that flushed the ring down the commode. That's what their marriage is. I've had a woman that came to me on the referral because her doctor couldn't do anything. She had allergies, that she wore a neck here and slacks to cover up the red whelps that she was allergic to. She wasn't allergic to anything but her husband. And I very, very seldom recommend divorce, but I said, honey, you either get out of that environment or you strangle, because it had already gone internal, in. It was that bad. But, okay, now I want to know why. What the heck triggered this thing? And it's usually an emotional thing. She had a fantasy of when she got married, this guy's going to take her off on a white horse. She's going to be pure. Nobody is going to touch her until she has that marriage certificate. Okay. So when she met what she thought Mr. Right, he accommodated her. He was in heat all the while. And she knew this, but I'm not going to do anything till I get that marriage certificate. And he was an idiot. Well, let's say he was immature, and it was a sad situation, because the guy's nice. I know the guy. But what happened was, they'd been dating 6 months, and finally she got married. She got married in white. She's one daughter. And I mean, they had the church where they had the biggest thing, and she is everything she fantasized, just like this. And what did this guy do? After they said, I do, he gulped his drink, and it was sort of like revenge. I call it sort of immaturity. They got in a car. They were going to go on a honeymoon. He got 5 miles out of town, turned into a sleazy motel, pulled her out, threw her on the bed, and he said, okay, you've got the license, and I want what I want. And he raped her. Okay, that was the start of her marriage. That was the night that she took the ring off and cleaned it in solution. That's 2 weeks later, she flushed it down the commode. The next time, she put it on the window ledge, and the incinerator gobbled it down. She lost 4 rings in the 10 years she was married. She had allergies. She was so repulsive and kept on going to the doctor. She had whelps on her. And he liked sex. And that was didn't bother him. He married her for that, and by gosh, he was going to get it. And she was slowly destroying herself. Until she came into one of my, what I call fun and game classes, and said, I would like some counseling with you. She said, I've had every allergy treatment there is. She said, of course, I can't eat anything anymore, nothing. Sometimes it escapes me why they can't understand. She wasn't wearing a ring at the time. But the other girl that came in, she's happily married. All right, then we can find out in 2 years something happened. Let's see what happened here. And then they talk about it. Okay, you can rehabilitate people in one session. If they come in with asthma problems, honey, they're not having enough space at home. They are limited on space. They may have enough space, but they don't think they do, you see? And so every last thing that you're manifesting first was caused by a wrong emotion. And you are your physician. Physician, heal yourself. Start asking. You had this seminar, you've had some fantastic information, some fantastic lectures, and some material that just can be invaluable. Don't go home and put it on the shelf and say, I'm going to do this. Seriously work on yourself and say, okay, what can I do here? Now that was good, that was good, that was good. Here's another thing. There's someone up here that needs this. Whenever you're out to eat a meal and you're having what I call spastic colitis, because you do up here, one of you does. And when you do this, I want to recommend something for you. Start out eating anything you want to, but before you eat it, go like this. Can I put that on the board? This is a very, very, very excellent thing, and it's what I call a suggestology technique. Some of you have heard of this. Okay, close eyes mentally. Don't have to call attention to yourself. Go like this. Mentally, and put a dot in on your plate like this. Say, sit down. Some people bless anyway. Go like this, and then eat. Okay, what you have done, anything that has been an irritation to you in the colon, you have nullified it. And keep on doing this, and keep on doing this, and all of a sudden it's a way of life with you. Okay? Can you do that? Do that now. Anybody you know that has? Okay? All right. Okay, that's for one of you that has a spastic colitis up there, okay?
To your plate?
Yes, Another thing, and I am not a doctor, so I should not recommend, but if I'm led to do something, then I will, and it's for the same person. Get some acidophilus capsules, 2 of them, acidophilus, and what that does, your stomach is so irritated this morning that I'm picking up and it's not mine. And use acidophilus, a capsule or 2 before meals. And what you are doing, you're not making enough enzymes in this, and because it's been of such long standing, then you're having other, what I call, problems. There's nothing physically wrong with you except this part. Okay? All right, I'm not going to look at you and tell you who it is, so you know who it is. Another thing, what I did in my classes, we talked about stress, and there's many, many things that you can do for stress. My first introduction to stress was when they hooked you up on a machine. It's called a biofeedback. At that time, it was $50 for a half hour. And they taught you how to lower your blood by watching a monitor. Very, very, very effective for you. $50 a session. Come in for the next 6 weeks, twice a week, whatever. Well, I talked to the man, and he was very, very open, and he said, anybody can do this. He said, all you have to do is take a thermometer. And he gave me instructions. So I went home because I teach a lot of classes, and I wanted you to know how simple it is to control your stress. I called it a stress alert. Got these wholesale, 1,000 of them. Mm-hmm. Now, taking this, and I even put this up here. Here is putting this finger and this finger here, and then just closing your eyes for maybe, say count 2. Come to 100. Now, then open your eyes, and if this is in the red area, you have stress. If it's in the blue area, marvelous. If you have stress, which many people do, unfortunately, because of our society, of so many things we're plagued with, then I say, okay, what you then do, and this is so simple, pretend like you're in front of a fireplace, put your hands with the warmth, or lay them in hot water. It only takes you maybe, say, 20 seconds to do this. Then get up here and watch it go back into the safe area, which is the blue area, the neutral area. Now, when you're doing this, this is just sort of a little tool, because people like little things to play with. There are explicit instructions, and these are only $3. No, $2 if you want one. If not, make your own. But I made them, as I said, for my classes. So when you do this, and I don't want you to become aware of stress alert, just for the time being. Now, after you have done this, and then it can be a way of life with you. If you once do something for at least 3 to 6 weeks, this includes taping, listening to tapes, programming tapes, then you have incorporated into your personality, and then it's a way of life with you. You won't have stress anymore. If you do, then that just sort of surfaces back to you, and you know that you can eliminate it. But initially, we do start out with a technique. And after you once learn, then it's part of you see? Just like these rings become part of you. If you don't like them, or they're significant to you and you want to change it, then go ahead and change it. This is a wanting creature comforts or parent fixation. If your ring is, if the finger is also crooked, more parent fixation. What'll people say? Is usually your attitude in your environment. And parent fixation, I want to please my parents. This one is phallic symbol, marital status. Also, if you are sexually aroused by a hunk of man, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your husband, because Paul Newman used to turn me on, but now it doesn't matter anymore. But you will roll your ring. You'd say it's a habit with you. It is, but you're toying with the idea, hey, he's a good hunk or whatever. Okay, you're toying with that idea. Now, the strange thing on this is, even if you know what I'm going to share with you now, do you know you're still going to do it until you become aware of it? A couple of years ago, I was up in Detroit, Michigan, and I was at a church, and this minister had heard me lecture. She says, Helena, I like, you have so much information, but she said, my group here, she says, try not to say they're in heat, or some of these other little things that, I call it the way I see it sometime, And so I said, well, really try to watch this. And she said, another thing. She said, you talk. You can talk 8 hours. And they have to go to the bathroom. And I said, well, usually I know when they have to go to the bathroom. And she said, but we're limited on time here. And so would you mind if I have one of these little bells? And when it's break time, she does the ding-a-ling. Well, just looking at her, I knew she was a Mother Superior, lifetime after lifetime. And she controlled those little penguins. So I said, well, this is your turf, so I'm going to, go along with you on this. So we're talking about these rings, and we're going down the line. And she'd heard my lecture, remember, twice. She'd gone to New York, and she heard it again. Now this is the third time she's heard it. But this did not apply to her. So now, I'm talking about the phallic symbol here. And I'm talking about the Johnny Carson show, because that's a classic. You can watch. Tell you what you do. When you see this, look at the eye contact, and then you can pretty well to see who is upsetting who, or who you're turned on with. You can do this while you're watching television. There's some hunks there, you know. You can do it in church, you know. Women do it, men do it. I mean, that's universal, kids. Nothing wrong with it. Except now, here it is time, and I have talked about my things, and all of a sudden she comes up, little bell rings, and that means wind up, we got to go to lunch. So she walks up like this, and she said, some of you have come a great distance, and we're having lunch for an hour and a half. Now, I want you to know that there is a Whataburger 3 blocks up the way here. There is a steak place, that's pretty good, and then there's a fish place. And she's going like this. She's going like this and directing for everybody. All of a sudden, I'm standing there and I'm laughing, and some of them are snickering and going like this, and continue to go like this. And all of a sudden, she knows there's something wrong. What's the matter with? Then she looks down in her dress, you know, and her hair, and now she's concerned. Finally, she says, any other questions? And everybody's laughing now, and they're getting up. Now we're walking out, and she's beside me, and she says, what was that all about? And I said, well, we all now know that you have the hots for that guy up in the corner. And she was absolutely unglued. Well, what was so funny was, we're walking out, they're still laughing. This boy is up there, and he's going like this. Say, I had nothing whatsoever to do with this, you know. And I said it was one of her followers, but she, red, white, and blue. So she knew this. A couple years ago, I was in California with Polly Bergen. We were doing a talk show, and this MC, usually I did 2 shows yesterday, but it was completely different. Usually they're very sophisticated. It was the man that now does Love Connection. What was his name? Chuck Hillary. You know him? Chuck Hillary? Handsome hunk guy. Okay. Now, Polly and I are sitting there, and they never come in before the show because they usually ask leading questions, and they won't. And it was an hour show. She and I are going to do this thing. And Polly's very tuned in. She was advertising some of her facial creams and so forth. We were sitting there and swapping stories and so forth. All of a sudden, Chuck walks in with his pancake makeup on. I mean, he said, I want to come in and see the gals. I think we're going to have some exciting show this morning. And I looked at Polly, and she looked at me, and we both went like this. And I said, what's your problem? I said, I haven't been with my husband in 3 weeks. She said, oh. And he then, with his pancake makeup, was bright red. He says, what are you gals doing to me? And he walked out. It's hysterical. And I said, where'd you get that information? She says, honey, I know everything. It was delightful, absolutely delightful. So yeah, you can have fun with it. You got to have fun sometime. How am I doing, John, on time? We need another break? What time is it?
It's about 11.
Okay. Well, I have what I would say one story right after the other. Are there any questions on healing, on eating? I have a whole rapport after I finish the fingers. Remind me to do on eating. You have a question now, though. Yes, I will finish this. Okay. This is the phallic symbol. This is what I call the symbol of being very impressed with the high school or the engagement. You usually wear the class ring here. It has no significance. This is the ring that tells us a little bit about you. This here is the finger of balance. The finger of balance. And you can wear it on, or you don't. You don't have to wear rings. Some people don't wear rings at all. They're not married, or it bothers them. This is okay. They will still do body language with them. Watch. You tell me more about yourself with hands than any other way. I'm just watching them. Okay. And so this is can be or can be. This is one of the most powerful fingers. This is the authoritative finger. If you're wearing a ring on this finger, you are vying for authority or you have authority. Where did this come from? Kings, queens, empresses. In Rome, as far back as we can go into race consciousness, this was their status of power. And the Pope, you never have seen a picture of the Pope or in audience that he doesn't have rings on these fingers. This is part of it. Or kings when they are in in their state. Okay, that means authority. Now, in our modern generation, the gals will, I call it fads, they will wear 2, 3 rings and so forth. That doesn't mean anything. Only time it means something is if you've worn it 6 months or longer. I don't know who you're, a number of years ago I was up here in Denver lecturing for a church, I think, religious science, Reverend Nichols. Any of you know him? I was up here. There was, at that time, and maybe it's been 10 years ago, 15, it escapes me, but at that time you had a editor of the newspaper Denver Post, I believe it was. I'd met him someplace, and he was the only man, to my knowledge, at that time that wore a ring on this finger. And when I see this, I will go up and I will say, how long have you worn the ring? First of all, how long have you worn the ring? And I think he said 2 or 3 years or whatever. And I said, 2 or 3 years ago, I said, what significant thing happened to you that prompted this ring? Was it a gift? What was it? Yes, it was, his father passed away and he was made editor of the Denver Post. Now he is an authoritative position. And there's no bigger authority than being editor of a paper. So this, and he's comfortable with it. And so you do wear rings on fingers. Now, the only place I've ever seen a ring on the finger was in New York, where a black boy was wearing it at a filling station. This is your finger of what I would say, what I call self-image. Self-image. If you have a good self-image, watch this. I have my hands like this. If I'm sitting, if you see a child like this, please go right over and tell them to put the thumb out. This is poor self-image. There is something that was traumatic with the child at a younger age, and she doesn't even know it. And like in graph analysis, have any of you been diagnosed with graph analysis? Because if you get to an analyst and you're having what I call hang-ups, and they analyze writing, they can have a healing, what I call a physical as well as an emotional healing with changing your handwriting. So changing mannerisms like this, I said, let's be androgynous and let's be balanced. You will actually change, put it into your personality, and you will become that person if you want to. While I'm talking, anybody goes like this, this means they're doubting what I have to say. And I want you to discern what I have to say. I like that. Any of you that are sitting like this means you're very comfortable. And I want you to be comfortable. But the minute that you go like this, then I am responsible. Because what you have done now, you have accepted the latest tidbit that I just shared with you, and you like it so well, you want to incorporate it in your awareness, then you go up and go like this, and you've accepted it. You will do this throughout the lectures. Also, if you are very receptive, you will always sit like this. You're open and you're receptive. I sit like this because I want to hear everything. Now, if I do not care for it, then I will promptly put over, if there's something that they've changed pace, let's put it this way. And every one of the speakers that I have observed, and I sit in the back. I'm not what I call a know-it-all, but hell, I know a lot. I do. I know where they're coming from, where they're going, and where they've been. Okay? I know when they're on drugs. I know when they're unsure. I know when they're having entities around them. And that's sad, because there's you just sort of know all these things. You don't judge anymore, because what you're doing is that's where they're at. And you're not going to interfere unless they come and ask you. Then if they ask you, then you should give them their opinion. What you're doing, honey, is all you're doing is usually an entity is behind them, tell them this. And you're a channel to help them themselves. So you don't judge anymore, but you do pick up a lot of information. That's why I said, and my husband reminded me, you can't save the world. The world doesn't want to be saved. But at one time, 20 years ago, after I'd gotten into awareness, and you know how I got into this thing? There was a class called Silva Mind Control. That was one of the most fantastic experiences, meeting Jose. And when I met Jose, and I never knew this little man is about this high. He's from Mexico. He had such a heavy accent, I couldn't even understand him. 20 years ago today, it's been, when he was in Fort Worth, and my friend said, you've got to come and hear this guy. And up there he stands, he's very, very proud. And only just sat in front, and all I got was this warmth here. I thought, God, what's the matter? I want to go up and hug this guy. Nothing sexual at all. It was this sincere dedication that was waves and waves and waves. And I'm not a hugger. I'm sort of aloof. You know, that's not my style. At home, we never were hugged. That was our culture. You had to be strong. You weren't hugged. And so I thought, well, what is going on here? After I got through with his introductory lecture, I had just won this big house, because what I was doing was researching on winning contests in particular areas. This was fascinating. 1 month, do you know, I'm going to brag, 1 month I won 33 prizes. That was over one prize a day. I got to where, hell, I mean, I said, Pat says, what do you want for Christmas? And I says, well, I need a new fry pan, but don't get me one, because I know I'm going to win one. And he bought me one, and the January I won 3 of them. You see? I mean, it was just like, so what else is new? You can do this. What you're interested in, you become very proficient with it. But it was fun in games. It was fun. Really, you need to have fun with it. Well, anyway, I brought him home, and I said, you know, I sort of like you. And his class was $150 at that time. I said, there's no way anybody that I can't even understand is going to get $150 from me. I mean, well, I don't even know what he's talking about. So I brought him home, and I gave him tuna salad, and we sat there for 15, 20 minutes. And he said, you know, I've been led to open areas. He says, I have nothing new to offer. I only have a review. But higher intelligence tells me I must offer it. But I also must have people that will do publicity, find a suitable meeting place for me, register people. He said, it's time for me to open Dallas. And he said, and you have been chosen to be my secretary and do this for me. I said, get yourself another girl. I can't even understand you. I had no way. And he says, but you have to. That's all that's to it. So I told this to my husband. And my husband says, well, yes. He said, go ahead, and me won't hurt you. So he says, okay. Then I had the free class. And we started out. And when I got through with the class, and all of a sudden, he's coming in. We have 53 in our class, 88, whatever. I had no intention of getting paid. And I swear I didn't even think about that. Every time he left, he handed me $1,500. And I said, he says, this is for you. And I said, I can't take that. I don't want that. He says, you must. He said, you are a skeptic, and higher intelligence is giving you money. You go all over the world, Helen, 10 times whatever it takes. Take every class, do everything you want to. You have to be in this work. And that's how I got. I mean, my first thing was I went to see Dr. William Jennings Bryan Jr. I was very frugal, and I thought, Dr. Bryan is going to be in Las Vegas, and I'd gotten his literature. His class is $200. God, I'm not going to pay $200 for a class. But the woman says, oh, you've got to. And I thought, if I have to, higher intelligence is going to have to make me know it. Here I have my $2,000 stashed over here. And so what do? I read his literature. It said, there will be one person I will entertain as a scholarship. I sat there and mentally talked to him, and I said, I'm going to write you a letter, Dr. Bryan, and I want to be your scholarship. And it specified you had to be a medical doctor, a practicing attorney, or you had to be an RN before you could get into his classes. This man was the most fantastic person on awareness. Jose and he were my mentors. And so I wrote the letter. 3 days later, I got a telegram from Dr. Bryan. Said, you are my scholarship. I am anxious to see you. Anybody that could write a letter like this, I'll meet you in the bar, kid, when you come to Vegas. And I walked in to the Stardust Hotel. This big glob of a man standing at the bar. There are about 100 people there, and they spill over out into the hallway. I just walk away, look. He walks up, he says, you got to be my scholarship. This guy had ESP that would not quit. He was the one that instigated, if any of you are in the healing arts, P-tapes. You know what P-tapes are? Personalized tapes. They are the best kind of a tape if you're doing any kind of counseling or work in self-image or whatever. They're sold out here. These tapes are excellent, but they become invaluable when they're P-tapes. What he did was, he was the guy that you'd come in off the street, he would talk to you for 15 minutes, $1,500. And he was the one that rehabilitated alcoholics,